Hi there, everybody. Joel Charles here. Let's get started. All right, everybody. So today, for my paper topic, I want to talk about what's the relationship between Greek theater and Greek democracy. So, for my hypothesis, I said due to the evidence from the place of origin and the civilization present during those time periods and the records we have to access about the people from those time periods, I do believe that Greek democracy was greatly influenced by Greek theater. Okay, so I want to set the stage for what's happening right now. And I think the spur of creativity to come up with all these different democracies, especially the concept of theater, all came from people having developed agriculture systems and being able to farm different kind of animals, especially when people started coming from a fertile crescent. Now, when we're over in Greece, an interesting thing that was occurring during that time was actually the spread of democracy. So it started in Athens and it worked its way all across the different parts of Greece. And this is when people decided to start governing themselves just because there were so many little city states in different areas that one specific rule couldn't account for all these different areas. Due to that reason, they all decided to take it upon themselves to go ahead and govern themselves in the best possible way, and that's what spread throughout different parts of Athens. Okay, now, so the connection between theater and democracy. Theater was not only used to entertain people, but the biggest thing that did is that it started teaching the common citizens of Athens really complex skills like critical thinking, critical judgment of different things. During that time, we had all the tragedy stories happening, like Oedipus Rex and Medea, and so you would have to think in depth about how they were doing stuff and why they were doing those specific things, and people just started learning how to take judgment on those specific things. Also, Greek tragedy teaches us the cautionary tales and dangers of aristocratic ethos, and it shouldn't be a model in how political field works. And examples of that I took directly are like Medea. She was definitely somebody of power and stature, but I wouldn't consider her someone to consider a role model. And same thing with Oedipus Rex himself. Sure, all the circumstances that happened to him were unpredictable and obviously an odd situation, but still, based on how he got his power and the things he did when he had power, he just wasn't a good example of what a person should be. Another interesting point that I found out when I was researching theater and democracy is that the threat to political action came from actually the judgment from the social realm of all the people that were there. Everybody would have an opinion about something, and their opinion held a lot of weight, especially during this time. And that was just due to how the democracy was shaped during that period of time. During this time period, there was a lot more consequences based off your political opinion, and due to that, a lot of people really cared for what they said and how they said specific things. A lot of these things could be held under a variety of sanctions, and sanctions are just to the degree of which people are disciplined. And this could range anywhere from paying fines to being ostracized by the public and even death in some situations. The biggest thing that would impact Athenian politics would actually be the theater, and this is due to like all the different kind of theaters that they had. So as we talked about earlier, we had all these tragedy plays that taught us how to be a critical thinker, how to think for yourself, seeing rights and wrongs and coming up with your own values and wanting to defend those specific values. And because Greek tragedy taught us so much about wanting to have critical thinking skills and being able to think for ourselves and stuff like that, people would become a lot more invested in their ideas and their political opinions. And due to that, they didn't want things like any kind of allegorical system or any hierarchy system. They didn't want any like one person to rule over vast different areas. They definitely really loved the idea of democracy, being able to have people talk for themselves and talk about the things that they actually cared for, the specific policies that they thought would work, and things like that. So that was one of the big aspects with political thinking. So that was the big push for democracy during this time period. And I think that was really interesting. Saying that, we could definitely tell that there was an interesting relationship between theater and the politics during that time period. It basically has like a very similar relationship to how the public can influence political figures or political movements and things like that. And I think it's really interesting because theater back then was a lot more potent than we would expect anything else to be compared to like nowadays. Theater back then would be like a combination of like all social medias on top of like being considered probably like CNN or like different other news networks, along with like comedy sketch routines or something kind of like the lines of South Park or things like that, where people would definitely share their opinions on specific like different political ideas and people that represented specific areas or thoughts. So definitely theater had a big impact on how people thought during that time period. So in conclusion, the connection between Greek theater and Greek politics is that they very much influence each other. Actually, I do believe that theater influenced the politics a lot more, especially during that time period, because it gave people that outlet to express how they feel about different ideas, different topics, and different like political figures. And that gives theater so much power, especially during that time period, which I think is like incredible to imagine. Yeah, they definitely work off each other as well. They teach the common folk the importance of building critical thinking skills, critical judgment, and things like that, being able to think for yourself, and made them build their own values in their head, what they found important, what they thought was important, and also kind of give a guideline to what was believed to be acceptable during that time period. Like if we look at a lot of the tragedy plays, people definitely didn't see the aristocratic society as positive, as they were always represented having problems and running to issues and always having to fight like really odd battles that were usually like self-inflicted. But also on the politics side, it gives them a chance to use all the knowledge and everything that they develop, and they would use that to their advantage to help change the political atmosphere. Alrighty, that should be about everything in my paper. If you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to leave any comments. Here are my references. Y'all have a great day.